Okay, let's see if we can do a video today without any skipped frames. Just need to keep my arms in check, yeah? Hi, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope this video finds you in good health and secure. Thank you ahead of time for liking and subscribing. It means so much to expand our reach and grow our Sangha. It's a Bodhisattva act, you know. By the way, I am reading, you may be reading with me, which is great if you are, The True Aspect of All Phenomena, right? It may be helpful to note that this is a letter that Nichiren wrote while he was in exile on Sado Island to a fellow monk, teacher monk of the Tendai tradition, school, not the Tendai school of Dengyo, but the Tendai school of Nichiren's day was, as we've heard Nichiren describe, lost its way and adopted a different application of teachings in the wrong order, blah, 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 blah. Suffice it to say that this particular monk, Sarenbo, was converted, was influenced, was convinced to follow Nichiren's doctrine of Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra as the ultimate teaching and method for attaining enlightenment, yeah? So basically Sarenbo left his school of learning in Buddhism and saw that Nichiren was correct in his interpretations of Shakyamuni's teachings, and so he abandoned his Tendai lineage and started to practice and study with the advice, mentorship of Nichiren. That's an interesting point, and it adds a different dimension to the way that this letter is written. If you've noticed, it's very... when Nichiren talks directly to somebody with experience, with scholastic knowledge, like somebody of the Tendai sect would have, there's a lot of quoting and, I mean, he does this anyway, but there's less of that because that is assumed knowledge. And there's more direct discussion, and certainly in this letter, in its brevity, we find several major points being made, right? Usually in the letters, there's one point he digs in on and goes in depth, and he brings up many other things, but usually he's chasing down one critical aspect of Buddhism. In this letter, he's capturing the whole ball of wax, right? And there's a reason for that, and there's a postscript to this letter, and you'll understand more about that when we get to it. But for the moment, let's go ahead and continue with the letter as written. But you'll see in this very next sentence, even though you can tell this is written to a particular individual, but I want you, as I do all the time, read these. When they're written to a person, I take that person as me. Because Nichiren is talking to you and me directly. Even though these letters are addressed to other people, he's talking to our sentient minds of anyone who will listen. And we certainly are, like him, bodhisattvas of the earth. So this conversation is meant for you and me. So here we go. But now you must build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give yourself up to it. Now, do you see why I said that? Because if you read, build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra. Oh, yeah, but this is a monk who's got a reputation to uphold as a teacher in the community, blah, blah, blah. That's not me. But it is you. Because as I've said so many times, the way we begin our bodhisattva practice is by first instantiating our life condition of Buddhahood, and that radiates into our environment. We are not separate from our environment. Our environment reflects and images and contains the very essence of what we think of as our hermetic self, that illusion. Our self is our being. You could look at it as local versus all-encompassing. We influence our environment. There's no possibility that we don't. Even if you cage yourself in a box, you are limiting your affect and your influence, but you are still influencing what is outside of that box. And you could see that box as your human body, because the sentient mind isn't contained in this body, not in the box, right? So we are a reputation, to use a shitty English word because it has so much politic attached to it, reputation. How do people think about me? It's not about that. It's how you influence other sentient minds, right? At the ceremony in the air, the story of the Lotus Sutra, when the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions gathered together, the two Buddhas, Shakyamuni and Many Treasure, nodded in agreement. Again, the ceremony in the air, that story is about all sentient minds. And these leaders of sentience agreeing that this teaching is for every mind. What they decided on was nothing other than the perpetuation of the law throughout the latter day. Right? This is the story of the Lotus Sutra. This is the ultimate law. It needs to be held sacred, held valuable, pick a word. It needs to be embraced as precious. And in the latter day of the law, which we're in now, it will be in danger of being lost because of the tremendous amount of negative or distracting influences, let me say it that way, that will simply occupy people's minds until they just don't care to even entertain enlightenment. That can't happen. Not if we're going to have a planet of people who are embracing their entire potential, life, the value of life, right? It's slipping away. We see this every day. Many Treasures Buddha had offered Shakyamuni Buddha a place beside him, and when they unfurled the banner of Myoho Renge Kyo, the two leaders of the entire multitude made their decision together. This is the border between samsara and the entity of life, the engine of life, right? Shakyamuni being representative of samsara, the man attaining Buddhahood, and then Many Treasures being the emanation of mind, the imagination, the function of mind as Buddha, right? The two sides of the coin, if you will. Could there have been anything false in their decision? Their ultimate purpose in meeting was to provide a way for all of us living beings to attain Buddhahood. There it is. The transcendence, the transmigration, those delicious words that simply mean attaining Buddhahood in the mind, which is an emergent property of this physical reality. We leave the realm of the physical attachments and survival and species and right, and enter in the perception, the perceptive potential of the mind, unheld, unrestricted by physicalness, Buddha-ness. It happens right here. Although I was not at that ceremony, Nichiren continues, on looking at the sutra, this is crystal clear. On the other hand, I have been at the ceremony, but since I'm a common mortal, it is beyond my power to know the past. So that's an allusion to, well, this engine of life is without beginning. It's always been here, right? It is the fabric of the universe we exist in. But that doesn't mean with our minds we pay attention to it, because we're so busy getting food, getting shelter, so on and so forth. We're engaged in the physicalness. But if we allow our minds, train our minds, and invoke our perception of the whole process, we know it's nothing new. It may seem new to us as an experience, but that engine has been ongoing. There is no doubt, however, that in my present life I am the votary of the Lotus Sutra, and that in the future I will therefore reach the seat of enlightenment without fail. There's no doubt, because this teaching guarantees it. Judging the past from this point of view, I must have been at the ceremony in the air. In other words, this has always existed. I didn't invent it. Right? This is not of my making. This is of my becoming aware of. There can be no discontinuity between the three existences of past, present, and future. Now, if you're into mathematics or physics, Einstein, remember that guy, Albert Einstein, right? 100 years ago? He defined time as past, present, and future happening all at once. It's a mind bender, but if you're into that sort of thing, I encourage you to go look that up. Spend some time. If you're not, don't bother. It'll break your brain. But if you are, yeah, it's exciting to see how the great thinkers in the world, whether they come from chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics, they keep honing in on this thing that Shakyamuni figured out 3,000 years ago, but it's whatever you need to gain confidence in your practice, do it. Because I view things this way, Nichiren says, I feel immeasurable delight, even though I'm now in exile. He's on Sado Island. But with his Buddha mind, he understands this whole drama. Wow, this is amazing. Even in this crappy situation, doesn't change the value of life. Joy as well as sorrow moves us to tears. Tears express our feelings for both rewards and misfortunes. The 1,000 arhats shed tears in memory of Shakyamuni Buddha, and in tears, Bodhisattva Manjushri chanted Myoho Renge Kyo, the title of the teachings, the container, if you will. From among those 1,000 arhats, the Venerable Ananda replied in tears, quote, "This is what I heard." The tears of all the others fell, wetting their inkstones, and they wrote Myoho Renge Kyo, followed by, "This is what I heard." I, Nichiren, now feel exactly as they did. I am now in exile because I spread the 5 and 7 characters of Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I spread this teaching because, quote, this is what I heard. Shakyamuni Buddha and many treasures Buddha left Myoho Renge Kyo for the future and for all living beings in the country of Japan. And by extension, Jampudvipa, the whole world, right? Now, what's he referencing when he says that? What do you think he's referencing? When they left this Myoho Renge Kyo for the world, for all sentient beings, yes, and insentient. He's referencing the Treasure Tower chapter, the reference to us samsaric physical beings of this noble state of mind with ultimate rewards, our perception of, our experience of, our complete potential manifesting without abatement or obstacle, or what was the word I used earlier? It was much better. Anyway, without the impediments of our physical attachments, yeah? I cannot hold back my tears when I think of the great persecution confronting me now, or when I think of the joy of attaining Buddhahood in the future. Birds and crickets cry, but never shed a tear. I, Nichiren, do not cry, but my tears flow ceaselessly. I shed my tears not for worldly affairs, samsara, but solely for the sake of the Lotus Sutra, of Myoho Renge Kyo. Profound appreciation, excitement, joy. What will words do to capture this sensation of enlightenment? So indeed, they must be tears of Amrita, right? The Nirvana Sutra states that while the tears one has shed in past existences at the death of one's parents, brothers, sisters, wives, children, and other relatives surpass the quantity of water in the 4 great seas, one weeps not a drop for Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings. One becomes a votary of the Lotus Sutra by virtue of one's practice in the past. It is karmic relationships that determine which among the many trees are made into images of Shakyamuni Buddha. It is also because of karma that some become statues of Buddhas of the provisional teachings. Now, there was a big shift just then. But remember who he's talking to, right? The Tendai school at the time didn't have a particular mandala. They had an image in mind of Myoho Renge Kyo, right? Because it's based on the Lotus Sutra. Tendai is. But there was a lot of polluted ideas, and they were still making iconographies wrong, but still there's a karmic relationship in that, right? Everything is karma. Remember, it's not good or bad. It's energy acted upon, which then forms, right, conditions, tendencies, amalgamates, momentum, right? And even an ant is. We say it has karma. You have karma. But the truth is, we are karma, right? And language isn't as precise as we'd like it to be, but it can be really unprecise and misleading because of that. So it's a subject I keep hitting on, but I want you to stay aware. Language is very difficult in our understanding, our profound understanding of the way Buddhism, the Dharma, works. That's why you have to experience it for yourself. That's why no one can train you. You have to train yourself. It's just the only way, because language always fails us. And so it's not just that the tree is karma and its particular freight train of karma leads it to be in the location it is and be seen by, and so on and so forth, until it's carved into an image of Shakyamuni. But it also, relationships, remember? Relationships with the people that are around us. Some trees will never be seen by a human being. And yet others are. And that relationship, right? It sounds mystical, but it's not. It's just plain to view. You know, in Japan, when they build an important building, whether it's a tea house or a temple, they're very, very careful in their selection of trees, and they're turning the trees into lumber for construction to keep them identified, so that when they take a tree, for example, to make pieces of lumber for the wall, right, the stud, and then the piece of lumber that then becomes a ceiling joist or a roof rafter, and it goes over to the other side and then back down to the ground. They will be careful to use a tree where they cut those pieces of lumber out of the same tree and make sure they remain connected in the construction of that building. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? That sense of connection, of integrity. And you can kind of see that cultural weight or idea creeping into what we read about Buddhism, yeah? In this letter, I have written my most important teachings. Remember how I started this video? Nichiren didn't just sit down on one subject and so let's nail this down. He's talking about his own path to enlightenment, which covers many topics, right? Many aspects of his life, let alone his practice, and the practice. Grasp their meaning firmly and make them a part of your life. Again, like he's talking to you and me. Emulate as I have done. Have confidence in the Gohonzon, in that mental portal from your samsaric reality to your Buddha-ness perception. The supreme object of devotion in all of Jambudvipa. And there it is, object. I think I've changed that to objective. It's not in this copy. But that's the objective of devotion, right? Not that scroll, not the mandala. The mandala is our mental transport for our samsaric senses so that we can attain, have a relationship with, experience the Gohonzon portal into Buddha-ness. Be sure to strengthen your strong resolve and receive the protection of Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Because when you attain Buddha-ness, then you know, again, Shakyamuni saying that the enlightenment, the Dharma, the experience of Buddha can only be shared between Buddhas. So that's another reference to that, yes? Exert yourself in the two ways of practice and study. Congratulations, that's what we're doing. Without practice and study, there can be no Buddhism. Right? So you'll hear sometimes all you need to do is chant. Well, not really. Chanting, of course, absolutely important. And that's practice. So that's a very important component. But if you don't endeavor to understand what you're doing, what's the first thing anyone will ask you if you tell them about Namo Myo Renge Kyo? What does that mean? Are those magic words? You need to dissect that for people so that they can, on their own, discover that it's an invocation of self-enlightenment. It's not magic. It's a determined call to the engine of life to be perceived through our samsaric life, through our sentient mind. Yeah. You must not only persevere yourself, as we all must, you must also teach others. I know that always seems daunting, right? All you have to do is chant with others. They will come to you. They will come with questions. Chant first, then look at the resource we have here. All these videos. I have all the free information on threefoldlotus.com. E-books, print books, right? There's lots of resources here. You must also teach others. Both practice and study arise from strong resolve. If you're dedicated to your practice, your curiosity is going to demand that you remove any doubts that come up. And that means you need to study. You need to find out more. And then you gain confidence, and then you practice. Even if it's only a single sentence or phrase. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, with my deep respect, Nichiren. Even if it's only a single phrase. Pop open the Lotus Sutra and just pick a paragraph. Something there will either intrigue you and carry you into deeper study, or it'll be all you need to read and go, oh yeah, that reminds me. And you'll go back to Namo Myoho Renge Kyo with a sense of knowing. Right? We're samsaric beings. Nichiren understood this. This is how we roll. The postscript says, I wrote before about the doctrines that have been handed down to me. So that wasn't part of this letter, but those I have revealed to you in this particular letter are very important. Is there not a wonderful and difficult to understand bond between us? Aren't we karmically engaged? How could we not be? Are you not the embodiment of one of the four bodhisattvas, including superior practices, who led the bodhisattvas of the earth, equal in number to the sands of 60,000 Ganges rivers? A high compliment, but also he's not just complimenting to flatter. He's complimenting to indicate, if we're having discussions on this level, then understand how important your practice is, not just to yourself, but as a votary of the Lotus Sutra. There must be some profound reason for our relationship, just as any relationship we have with others that we help. My relationship with you, for instance, incredibly amazing, valuable. I'm grateful because we're trying to do the same thing. Raise the consciousness of our environment, as well as ourselves, of course. I've given you the teachings that concern myself, my own experience, me, Nichiren, he's saying. Nichiren may be one of the followers of the bodhisattvas of the earth who are equal in number to the sands of the 60,000 Ganges rivers, for I have been chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo out of my desire to guide all men and women in Japan. The sutra says, quote, among these bodhisattvas were four leaders. The first was called Superior Practices. These four bodhisattvas were the foremost leaders and guiding teachers, end quote. A bond of karma from the past has led you to become my disciple. By all means, keep this letter to yourself, because it's some powerful stuff here, and you don't want people to get jealous of our relationship, right? Especially in the medieval Japan. But use this as inspiration to help you create your own bonds of practice with others, yeah? I have herein committed to writing the doctrines of my own enlightenment. I will end here. Reply to Saidenbo. And then there's a background in here you can read if you like. All right. The true aspect of all phenomena. Just from the title, you might imagine this is a drop the mic moment kind of thing, right? It's an important go show. So with that, I'm going to close today's video. The next one will be on letter to Nikkei. Not who you might think. It's not one of the 6 main disciples, but at any rate, we'll get into that in the next video. For now, remind yourself of how precious this practice is. I'm thinking I might do a video, an interlude into this book here on I don't know if this will make sense, but how do we day to day, all this, we chant for wisdom, we chant for our Buddha nature, we chant for clarity, and without knowing with words, with directions, with steps, how that enlightenment of our Buddha nature incorporates itself in our daily lives. I've talked about this before, but it's easy to forget. We sometimes start to wonder, well, how do I use this practice to change my life actively? What do I do other than chant, study, gongyo? How do I see this? How do I change my, how do I interrelate these relationships so I can affect my world with my enlightened nature? You're doing it. But sometimes it's hard to have confidence that it's actually happening, right? Because we don't have big aha moments every day. We should, but we don't. Sometimes we get very involved in samsara, and we go through several days, and we think nothing's changed, which is just our ignorance, because things are changing all the time. But be that as it may, I don't know. It may not be a necessary topic to do a video on. Let me know in the comments what you think. Maybe you have specific questions in that regard, yeah? Let me know, and if there's enough interest, yeah, I guess I'll challenge myself to talk about it. But just know that your practice is doing that, right? Just because it doesn't show up in the mail doesn't mean it's not happening, right? We're very obsessed with the physical reality. We want to see, touch, smell, poke it, right? Anyway, take care of your health. That's all I want to say. Thank you for your practice. Like and subscribe. Patrons, as always, you guys are amazing. So essential for me continuing this, right? So thank you all. Really, profoundly, thank you. And, hey, take care of your health. Be kind. I'll see you in the next one, okay? Bye for now.